Good morning, students. Today I will be telling you a story, a short story. That is A Face in the Dark by Ruskin Bond. Now, Ruskin Bond has written this short story, which is not a real one but a supernatural one. So let us see how the story goes on. The story is about the place Shimla, and there was a school, an English school, which was a very, very renowned school. And Mr. Oliver used to teach in that school. The school was a boarding school, in fact, for students, and it also accommodated the teachers. That is, the teachers had quarters in that school. So, Mr. Oliver, who was unmarried bachelor, used to live in that school. The school was not in the center of Shimla or in the heart of the city. It was in the outskirts, and the bazaar of Shimla was in the heart of the city. So whenever Mr. Oliver wanted to purchase something, he had to go to the center, that is, he had to go in the center of the city, that is, to the bazaar, and that was 3 miles away from the school. One such day, when Mr. Oliver wanted to go to the bazaar of Shimla, he decided that he will come back before the sunset because it's a hill station, and you all know it becomes quite difficult in a hill station after sunset. So he decided to come back to the school before sunset. On the way to the bazaar, they had to cross a pine forest because that was the shortcut to the bazaar. So Mr. Oliver thought that if he wanted to come back fast, he had to use the shortcut, that is through the pine forest. So he decided to go through that pine forest for the bazaar. On his way back, he had to cross again the same pine forest, and then this incident took place. Mr. Oliver did have a torch in his pocket because generally people who stay at hilly areas do keep a torch in their pocket because after the sunset the roads are not quite well lit up by lights or street lights. That is why they have to keep a torch with them. So Mr. Oliver also had a torch in his pocket, but the battery was just about to die. So the light of the torch was kind of fading away. Yes, the light was very dim. Anyhow, he had that torch in his pocket, and when he was returning back to school, as he was going through that pine forest, he heard the wind blowing, and as you know, the pine forest have so many pine trees in it, and they are huge and tall, and when the breeze blows through it, you can hear the sound of the leaves. It seems as if in the dark somebody is following you. The same thing happened with Mr. Oliver. And so when he was returning back and crossing the pine forest, then and there he heard the cry. He heard someone crying very, very loudly. He tried to see in the dark, but nothing was visible. So he took out his torch and then he switched it on and tried to find out who was crying. To his surprise, he saw that a boy was sitting on a big stone with his head bowed down, and he was covering his face with his hands. Mr. Oliver walked towards that boy and asked him, "Why are you crying?" That boy kept on weeping. In the meantime, Mr. Oliver noticed that the boy was wearing a cap, and that cap was the school cap to which Mr. Oliver belonged. So he could make out at once that the boy was one of the students of the same school. So he thought that how is it possible that at this time of the day that boy is out in the forest? So he tried to inquire. He asked the boy, how come in that time of the day he was there in the forest? Because students were not allowed to go out of the school in after sunset, that is in the evening. When Mr. Oliver asked that boy slowly lifted his head up and removed his hands from his face. What did Mr. Oliver